It's the Anfield Rap in association with Redsbet. They are our partners for 2018, and 50% of your losses goes to Liverpool fan-related causes. Be gamble aware at all times, obviously, and that's begambleaware.org. We're here to talk today about Liverpool 2, Fulham 0. I'm Neil Atkinson, and I've got with me Rob Gutmann, Mel, Reddy, Adam, Melia, and Dave Segar. And Rob Gutmann, impressive performance or low-key performance or both, because the two are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it's kind of all of the above, isn't it? We met after in good spirits after the game.
High spirits.
High spirits, I would say. And
you lost at Jenga.
I lost at Jenga
and
twice, having given it the big one.
Yeah, you gave it quite the big one.
But yeah, but
you said you had unbelievable moves at the end game of Jenga. But
I had wine, so I wasn't quite as nimble of finger as I can be. That's what she said, or something. But anyway, yeah, do you know what?
It's like Sunday Supplement this, Mel. Go on.
You don't get this on Sunday Supplement, Mel. Yeah. I thought we were okay. You know, if you park the fact that we don't know if Fulham are the worst team in Premiership history, or I know we're going to come on to discuss that maybe they aren't, I think we did all but beat what was in front of us first half. We created a lot of chances. I thought the football was really quite nice. And overall, Liverpool are in a... I wrote something about this in the preview on Friday. Liverpool are in a funk at the moment, and you get the points you can. And I don't even think we just won ugly here. I think we won respectably. It's as simple as that. 4 or 5-0 would have been nice, but the performance was as good as a 4 or 5-0, even if it was only 2.
I think it's a calm performance, Mel, and I think that it's one where Rob says we're in a funk. Whether or not, I think the funk thing is interesting. Do the players feel like that? Do the managers feel like that? Do the supporters feel like that? Does the wider football world feel like that? And there's probably a chart where that's different right the way through. The players maybe more so than the staff maybe less so than the supporters maybe less so than the wider footballing world. We're trying to find a story where there may not be one. But the point about all of that is Liverpool just did the business. They just went out and did the business. Arguably, well, not arguably, well, you can argue it, I thought they were far better than they were against Cardiff.
I actually agree with that. I thought some of the chances Liverpool created, and they've done this before against Tottenham, against Huddersfield, where ordinarily it could have been, 4 or 5 on account of the openings they generated. It still felt a bit patchy, especially first half, a bit laboured, too slow at times, and Liverpool come to life when their speed of thought and the clarity in what they want to do is striking. And I think both goals materialise from those aspects. There is still a little bit of a disconnect, I think, in all 3 departments. It feels very much like defence, midfield, attack. And there needs to be more cohesion going forward. I thought the second half was quite impressive. Liverpool controlled the game extraordinarily well. And they didn't do that in the first half, where Fulham created 3 chances that I can remember. I think they had 3 shots on target. They didn't manage one in the second half. And I think that will have annoyed Jurgen Klopp a bit, because he had 2 number 6s on the pitch, and they still managed to cut through despite playing quite a defensive formation.
That's the first half, Dave, and we'll come back to that in a second. The second half, I think you maybe see either that the manager was annoyed, or certainly that he sent them out to go and ensure they made the game safe. I think Liverpool's the most impressive aspect of the game, if you were to take the game into blocks, is probably the 15-20 minutes after the half-time break. I think Liverpool come back onto the pitch with the attitude of footballers who are going to make it 2-0, who are going to ensure that game gets sorted out, and who aren't going to take no for an answer.
Yeah, I think, when we go 1-0 up in the first half, I think a lot of people, certainly around me, were of that opinion of, as long as it's 0-0, we're a bit worried, but once we go 1-0, it's probably game done, and we can move on from there. I didn't really feel that way, to be honest, because we had conceded those chances in the first half, the ones that Sessegnon missed, obviously the disallowed goal, which was quite close, and so when the second half was about to start, I was thinking we really, really need to get the second goal quite quickly, because Fulham look like they're not necessarily going to lie down at 1-0 down here. But yeah, the way we came out in the second half and just completely stopped them from creating anything. I don't really recall any chances second half that Fulham had, to be honest. And yeah, that it was such a, as you said about the Cardiff game, well, obviously in that game when we go 2-0 up, we start to get a bit sloppy and let them get back into it. But in this game at 1-0, it was almost like the players were playing as if they thought the game was done, as long as they continue to do what they do best. And they were just so sure that the second goal would come and that they wouldn't have to worry too much about Fulham after that.
First half at times was a little bit pedestrian, as Mel said. It was a little bit side to side. It was a bit crab-like. You actually WhatsApp me that at half time.
Each other, weren't we? Yeah.
You were saying it's a bit crab-like. Second half, there is a dynamism from Liverpool, and there is this idea that they were forcing their will as to how the game was going to go on Fulham, which is something which I've been quite vocal that I actually think has been missing, and I think it was missing first half, and then second half it really was, and I think it's defined, it's epitomised almost in Robertson's performance, where he basically plays the game, and Liverpool ensure he plays the game where we want him to be, which is in their final third, threatening constantly.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think I in our text message conversation, I think I was using the word passive as well. I was a little bit downhearted, to be honest. I was during the first half because I felt that there's a number of things that might be happening at the moment, and one of them is our performances have never quite this season got out of third gear, and the results are possibly starting to catch us up. So I really wanted to see a performance yesterday, obviously, as well as the win. And halfway through the first half, I was thinking, this isn't it. This is kind of not. This is the thing I didn't want to see. The defenders defending, the midfielders midfielding, and the attackers attacking, but not cohesively, as Mel said. And I thought none of the defence were actually at the races. Robertson aside, really, I thought Gomez was struggling with Mitrovic. I thought Virgil was carried on a little bit of what he had midweek, where it was a bit like, this is a poor opposition, and maybe I can be languid Virgil. And I thought Trent was toiling and trying things, because that's what he does to get himself out of his own personal funk. And Trent does brilliantly for the goal, and they all do brilliantly for the goal. And I think that's what when you say your first question, impressive performance, low key performance, or both, it really turns on the goal, because there is an alternate reality where we could be a goal down. In fact, there's an alternate reality where we could quite feasibly be 2 goals down, because Sessegnon's chance is a really good one. I don't know out of 10 what you'd say that a chance is, but we could have been punished for our lumpy non-good performance. Non-good performance. That's a crap word.
I don't know. I'm maybe I'm seeing a different game. Have you watched? Can I do the risk is to make it sound terribly patronised? Have you watched it back?
I've only watched Match of the Day.
Okay, well, fair enough, because they would have shown that. My feeling was that we were creating a shitload of chances in that first half hour, and they're really, really good ones. I remember turning to Julio, that's next to me, and saying, our biggest problem has been the last 3 games. We're just missing sitters for fun here.
Yeah.
And they were really good chances.
I thought actually that we were attacking. The attackers were okay, and everything else wasn't great.
Yeah, okay, but we were good. I think we were good enough to have raced into a 3-0 lead there. Their chances happen after we've let them entirely off the hook. I mean, there's the one where Salah and Firmino did this double 1-2, which is sensational. And Mane should score in the first 3 minutes, shouldn't he?
Shaqiri drills one just wide
that
as
was
well.
So close, yeah.
Salah's put in the right wing position. Is he one-on-one with the keeper? The keeper makes throughout the game a lot of standing saves, but yeah, I don't know. I thought we'd done enough to have blown them away, and then because we failed, the inevitable riposte was going to happen, and then we get that assessment.
We allowed them to grow into the game, which was what annoyed me. I think it's midfield that lets that happen. And then the kind of the just like slight mistakes in defence allow them to actually have chances from that, and it's something which it might be confirmation bias, because it's something that I've seen Liverpool do in the past, and it's something that annoys me, although I know why we let teams come onto us, because it's almost like a team of any level can come and will allow them to have a game. Instead of imposing our will on them from the start. I take Rob's point that you take those chances, Mel, and you can look at all 3 of those ones that have been cited, and you can say they're good chances, and the keeper does well. What was different from that, we don't actually create that many chances in the second half patch that I was talking about that were as good, but we're banging on the door. We're there, we're present. Those 3 chances, I think the 3 of them, they span over 25 minutes. I think I'm probably right in saying about 25 minutes, and they happen very much spaced out. Whereas second half, we are encamped, aren't we? It is this idea of we're not getting out of this space until we've got our second, and maybe even our third. It takes a long time post the second for us to begin to play a little bit more sort of regulation football. We are very much like no, this is our game now, and that's the difference. Yeah,
the chances created in the first half did feel a bit like moments rather than the end result of continued, pattern play or anything like that. And I thought again, as we've seen in previous games, final ball or final decision was letting the attack down. But beyond that, I think when Liverpool are not fully in their stride, it is harder to then, you're just not in your rhythm to make those chances kind of count. And I think that's what we saw. The defence held onto the ball too often at times. There was not enough movement, and I think there's not enough movement because they're not expecting to get, any kind of improvisation on a ball unless Shaqiri has it. When Shaqiri's in possession, look at the difference in the move. You can actually visibly see the change on the pitch because they know he's got the capability to put in a ball that, their markers are not expecting, and that can find a little bit of space. The other thing is, I think the formation is not helping because Salah often enough is blocked by two defenders and he's expecting a ball over the top to come, and that's what he's got to deal with. Firmino is practically taken out of the game because he's playing so deep and is then encroaching on Shaqiri's territory and midfield territory. And I thought it was quite instructive that the best bits of Liverpool's play, the best bits of Salah's play, the best bits of Firmino's play comes when Salah reverts and goes out wide and is attacking from there, because then he's actually engaging people. He's not waiting for something to happen. He's making stuff happen. And then Firmino is moved up by account. That chance that we're talking about earlier, that 1-2, comes from that similar sort of situation. But yeah, when we're in possession and we're trying to force the game, we're not doing it in an intelligent enough way, I think, in a way that we're capable of doing. Because we are quite a rapid, clever, tricky side, and we've got 4 players there, from Shaqiri, Salah, Mane, Firmino, who all have the ability in a tight space to do something remarkable. So I think a little more bravery and conviction in what we're capable of would be nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think seeing that formation yesterday, the way they set up with, you say, Salah down the middle, Firmino in behind, Shaqiri on the right, Mane on the left, I'm still not completely in love with it myself yet. I think there's an element of, I think you saw it yesterday with having the 2 6s in midfield, working with those 4. I don't think they've quite got their heads around it yet. And I think you saw that in certain moments where Shaqiri was coming more centrally more centrally in the midfield area than Salah would when he was playing in that position. Firmino didn't seem to really know exactly where he was supposed to be a lot of the time. And I think that's had an effect on his form. Obviously hasn't been the best recently. And I think it's him struggling to revert to what is a very different role to what he was playing last season. And Salah as well, as you said, Mel, about constantly having the 2 defenders on him when we were playing balls over to him. Obviously from last year, playing off the right in that front 3, a team was never going to, even knowing how good Salah was, they were still never going to completely go on that side to stop him. So they were hoping that he wouldn't come in too often, but obviously he would late on in moves, and so he'd get in at the far post and score. Whereas now, if he's central all the time, he seems to be struggling to find that same space. And I think it's something that I think they will find a way around, and they did yesterday, and they still managed to make it so that they'd win the game still playing that way. Although, as you said, later on when Henderson came on, they moved back to the positions. They looked a lot more creative than they had been. But I think Klopp's going to continue using this, I think, in games like this where he wants to get the 4 in. But I personally think maybe moving Shaqiri into the Firmino role and putting Salah back out wide and Firmino back up front is probably the way to go.
He had a look at that, didn't he, against Southampton, and hated it to the point that he subbed him at half time, and he's not done it since. And everyone yesterday was saying, "Well, he'll do this. It'll be Shaqiri there." And I think he's decided that to get the best out of Shaqiri, he's going to use him where he's using him, and I think he thinks this is different, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And I think that exactly how this is different, I think we still remain to be seen, Dave. But I do think he thinks this is different. Yeah,
I think with Shaqiri, I mean, for me, I want to see him back in that 10 role, because I think he's shown in the games he's played lately that he's grown into this team, and he's starting to get a better idea of how to play in this team. I think quicker than most of us thought he would. Some probably didn't think he would at all. But yeah, I think you're right about Klopp. Has got this idea that he wants Shaqiri in that wide position, and he can't really trust him.
I suspect he'd actually want a lot more fluidity from them to interchange in those positions, and he probably will say that when Salah does go wide, yes, do that more often. That's what we want from you. You're not embedded to be the focal point and just remain there. And when I go back to talking about bravery and conviction, we need to realize that all three, and they've proven it, have shown they can interchange, and they just need to do it more often. And that in itself gives the opposition more problems to deal with, because you're actually never quite sure.
But what there is with the way in which this is set up, Rob, and I take Adam's point before, I think that, at times, the problem for me yesterday wasn't the attack. I want to come on and talk about Firmino and Mane a little bit, as I don't think either of them played particularly well across the 90 minutes. I think Firmino has a better second half. But I think that, for instance, I think you would argue that Shaqiri is sort of replacing Oxlade-Chamberlain, for instance, in the side that we saw last season as it explodes. I think that's a fair argument. But the difference is Oxlade-Chamberlain arrives onto the scene, whereas as that team's set up, they're all already onto the scene. And therefore, Liverpool, you can argue that the Liverpool player who arrives the most effectively yesterday is Andy Robertson. Andy Robertson arrives in situations rather than already being present in them. And when Mel was saying before, they all come alive when Shaqiri gets it. We've got to get it to Shaqiri. Which is lots and lots of sideways, and then finally it goes sideways, 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 whilst incrementally moving up the pitch, and then suddenly Shaqiri's got it, and then everyone comes alive a little bit. Whereas I think if the midfield is midfielding in a way which isn't compartmentalised, and there's the idea there's two of them, three of them who can probe from that area, either by passing the ball or by carrying the ball, then I think that's when you might be able to see more movement and more people arriving. Is that fair?
I don't know. I think the problem is the 4-2-3. Everyone's talked about this disconnect between the midfield, and this has been the theme here in the attack. But I think Klopp sort of wants it, because I think that's what 4-2-3-1 does demand, but it allows you to have those four players with more theoretical freedom. There is an issue with the type of position you're describing, and I think Klopp's wrestled with since he's been at Liverpool, because even with the Coutinho experiment last season, where he decides Coutinho might be a midfielder after all, and they put the four of them on the pitch together, there were clearly games where that didn't work and the midfield wasn't quite functioning. There were games when it did, when we had an enormous amount of the ball. I think
who's his best number 10?
Well, this is the problem. I think we've looked best balanced in a Klopp midfield when we've had Lallana or Chamberlain alongside a Henderson and a Milner or a Wijnaldum. But
a year ago was West Ham away, which was an interesting one, because that was one of the ones where all four. As
that really works well there, doesn't it?
So that is one where it did.
I don't think Shaqiri is a Chamberlain. I don't think Coutinho is a Chamberlain. I think Lallana and Chamberlain are sort of not exactly two of a kind, but they're near each other.
I don't think you can group Adam Lallana in the same bracket as Oxlade-Chamberlain. No, he's not as dynamic. Liverpool at the moment, the midfield is missing dynamism, is missing somebody to take the ball and carry it up.
It's missing someone to pass it vertically 40 yards.
Yeah,
both of those things aren't happening.
Exactly. Yeah, open up new passing lanes and engage
and risk losing it.
Yeah, but also engage. Liverpool are not engaging opponents enough, not making them uncomfortable enough. And I think the player that we've seen do that in recent weeks and given the opportunity has been Shaqiri. He is, every time he gets the ball, his thought is, what can I make happen? Doesn't matter if we lose it, it's okay if it's not the end of the world, but that is my job. I'm here to ensure that I can try and make things happen.
But its starting position is the edge of the final third, whereas when Oxlade-Chamberlain was playing last season, he could do that from deeper. We've seen Liverpool midfields in general do that from deeper, and as I say, either by passing it and risk losing it, or by somebody picking it up and deciding to carry it. My thing is, yesterday, what you were watching in that lumpy first half, where there were good moments, is it was lumpy, and then, as you said before, either Shaqiri manages to finally get on it, or one of the other three somehow stumbles onto it, and then suddenly we're alive.
Absolutely. And the midfield, I thought yesterday, it did my head in, because you've got Wijnaldum and Firmino basically playing as auxiliary centre-backs. They were so deep, and yet they were still allowing Fulham to create those chances. Honestly, I when that happened, I looked to the touchline to see Klopp's reaction, and he was absolutely livid, because he'd been trying to tell them initially to come further up. There's no reason to stand practically next to Virgil van Dijk. And he was telling only just one of them, and he was encouraging Wijnaldum to drop and Firmino to carry the ball. But I just did not get enough from either of them. And by then as well, what you've got is a situation where Virgil van Dijk's getting the ball. He doesn't have his midfielders to pass to because they're practically on top of him. And he's having to pick his head up, and he's got Salah there crammed in by the two centre-backs. So everything is just a little bit risk-averse at the moment, and there is no desire at all in terms of the coaching staff, in terms of the players themselves, for it to be that way. So I don't know why it's happening.
We did win, and it was a dominant performance. I'm not seeing. I think there are tweaks around the system. Well, if you're saying
we're not saying it's horrible, and we're not saying the position we're in. None of those things. It can. I think Neil made the point at the start. It's not separate conversations that we're having. Liverpool are having a phenomenal season. Equal their best points tally, have their best goal difference.
The
never
defensive
conceded.
record's unreal.
Yeah, the defensive record is unreal, and all those are superb, excellent things. There's a point Klopp makes, we should expect better of ourselves. We should always expect better of ourselves. And I think this is the conversation we're having, because we're seeing Liverpool do an extraordinary thing without truly being Liverpool yet. And this is I'm not comparing Liverpool to last season. I am comparing Liverpool to what I know they're capable of versus what I'm currently seeing. The players we have on the pitch are better than that performance yesterday, are better than previous performances.
I think it needs to start happening soon. I think that's the thing.
I think it will come. It will come.
That was why I felt that I was a little bit frustrated yesterday, is because I've been feeling that we need to start performing because there's tougher tests around the corner, and that was why I felt like it was a good game for us to start doing that, and you know, by the end I think we were a lot better, but yeah, that lack of dynamism was an issue, and I was wondering to myself whether that's what he wants from Firmino, because Firmino was dropping deep and trying to start things. Maybe he wants Firmino to do that drive as well as Shaqiri. Don't think it's particularly coming off for Firmino, but that's been the flaw for me in the 4-2-3-1. Is what it's done to.
Who's his best number 10? I asked you that before, and you've faffed about the point.
Because I don't know.
I think Mane's his best number 10.
I was going to say
out of the front three.
No, it's a full stop, and the whole squad is best number 10.
So
Mane.
at the end of last season, Mane was playing brilliantly.
Yeah, he was.
10,
so if he wants to do this, who plays left mid? Because I think his best number 10 is Mane. I think Mane's better at number 10 for him than Firmino is. So, and second half he goes Firmino left for the period and Mane central, because I think he's having a look at it. And I think Mane, in terms of making it happen, in terms of coming and demanding it feet, in terms of being able to play on the half turn, in terms of being able to spin, and then being able to look up and make a decision between driving at them or feeding someone, his best number 10's Mane, but then he hasn't got anyone to play left mid if he wants to play this shape.
Well, last season he played Mane cutting in from the left as a number 10.
But in a 4-3-3.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about if we do it as a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, in this shape.
In this shape, well, I don't know if Mane would work in that sense as a number 10. If you put him literally that central and he can't use his pace from out wide, I think we'd very quickly be going, what have you done to Mane here?
But then we were having a conversation about arriving onto things. And you know, so he comes, he pulls areas, he plays free, he can move around, he knows that Shaqiri's going to do this, he's got someone left doing this, he's got Salah there. I just think, genuinely, but then he hasn't got a left mid.
And then he hasn't got a left mid because Shaqiri wants to play off the right and Salah wants to play off the right. So yeah, you know, that is a genuine problem. That's when maybe you need a Fakir or something like that. Or
there he goes. Yay. There he goes, preparing for his gutter show.
You'll get a show. You'll get a show tomorrow. Just you wait. Fakir's been on the phone to me already. I don't know. To be honest with you, you're asking me a question I can't answer because I wouldn't play Mane. I wouldn't do that in a million. I wouldn't take Mane off the left because I don't think we have a better left-sided player.
I think what we don't see, or probably what we don't appreciate from Mane as well, is the defensive work he puts.
Oh yeah,
on that flank. Yeah. I think he wins the most tackles yesterday, and
I agree with that.
The amount he comes back and covers is extraordinary. And I think the issue he has as well is probably for that formation on the other side. Salah doesn't do that enough, so which is why he probably prefers him as the focal point.
Yeah, I was interested by Mane's performance yesterday. I'd like to see a heat map, to be honest, from him, because first off, it felt like he was really, really wide. I looked over to the touchline, and Robertson was having to underlap most of the time because he was so close to the line.
He did 10-15 chalk on boots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's instruction chalk on boots.
But then second half, it was almost the opposite, where Robertson seemed to be the entire left side himself, and he was doing a brilliant job of it. But I don't know, if it was under instruction from Klopp that Mane was to come more central. As you said, Neil, Firmino went out to the left for a bit, but it was, I thought it was interesting that certainly given, I think, in terms of playing on the left, as you said, Rob, with his using his pace and needing the space to get into, I think ideally that is where you'd like to have him, because if you put him centrally, similar with Salah, you lose that space he has to use his pace for, and that's one of his chief weapons. So I think it's better to keep him on the left. But having said that, when he went centrally yesterday, it did work better for the team because it allowed so much space for Robertson to get down that side. Obviously, puts in the ball for Shaqiri's goal from that space being created. And
Mane has that shot from the central position, doesn't he?
He does.
He's trying to play 1-2s and link with Salah all the time from there, and the shot he gets away is just phenomenal.
Yeah, although it looked an unbelievable save from Sergio Rico. Although I did watch it on Match of the Day later, and it was a bit more central than I thought. I thought it was going right in the top corner.
The power.
Yeah, he still did brilliantly to tip over the bar. But then of course we score about a minute later anyway. So
it's quietly, there's been a lot of goalkeeper performances get lauded at Anfield down the years, and sometimes you think, well, the ball's just getting hit at you a hell of a lot. Of course, you're going to look quite a good keeper. But I thought he played a fantastic game yesterday, that Sergio Rico.
I didn't know. I hadn't seen the lineup, so I didn't know who was playing. But I was wondering which one of Fulham's 17 goalkeepers was playing. But I knew whoever it was
I had to
would
look
be
up
brilliant.
who he was, yes.
Yeah. Moving into the second half, mentioned the two excellent performances before that both come through, Adam. Shaqiri and Robertson. Robertson coming to the fore in all areas of the pitch. Shaqiri enjoying getting on the ball and being direct when he gets the opportunity to do so. And in general, there's nothing wrong with direct running and running at people at all. It's far better to lose the ball there than against a side like Fulham than to lose it at a goal kick when their keeper then takes 3.5 minutes. Everyone gets back in shape and they blam it long to Mitrovic and we start all over.
I was delighted when I saw the team because I saw Shaqiri in the team basically as I was walking up, because from then I think you know that what the shape of the game is going to look like in terms of how we're going to attack. And I think without him having been there, it would have been 100% lumpy really. And it was as Mel said before, you can see when he gets the ball, everybody becomes more animated. Everybody's starting to make their moves because they know that it's him that's gonna make things happen. I mean, I've been completely positive about him the whole time he's been here. I think I said on a show a couple of weeks ago. I don't think he's put a foot wrong for Liverpool so far. I just think he's
weird. He hasn't.
I just think he's been brilliant. And I think his and I sort of disagree with something you said before, Neil, about how where he is on the field. I know he is at the base of the final third, I guess, but I think he's deeper than that as well. I think I can remember him coming to start moves. I remember him wide. Obviously, he's in the poacher's position for his goal, which is a fantastic finish, by the way.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a lovely finish. It was underrated because of the
really
quality
underrated.
of the ball.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I guess I was happy to see that BT had given Andy Robertson man of the match, but the game's all about Shaqiri for me. Everything positive. I started off on a bit of a negative note. Everything positive that I have to say about it is mainly about little Shaq. I love him. He's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm totally. I agree with you. It's good news when he's in the team. Yeah. I think Klopp's held him back. I think because he's so far. I think more often than not he's thought, well, my front three are great, and he's great to have off the bench when we want to freshen things up. So he gives himself an option. But I think you're going to have to see him more and more. I think this is why you're seeing the 4-2-3-1 experiment, because I think he thinks I need to wait to get them all four on the pitch.
But if he's doing that, we're going to come out and have a conversation about whether or not that negates how good Firmino and Mane are. And
but does the whole game become about Shaqiri in a way? When Shaqiri plays?
Yeah, that's
it sort of does, doesn't it?
I thought Mane had a mixed bag of performance, only because at key moments his touch was off. But I thought generally, if that's some lad around me goes, oh, Mane's having a nightmare. I thought, geez, if this is him having a nightmare, he shows what some player he is. Because there were moments in that game. Firstly, his application was incredible.
By the way, his hand, I think he still has 2 more weeks before the swelling comes down, so he's still playing.
So when he has opposable thumbs,
I've completely forgotten about that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, there was one moment in the first half where he nearly, it's almost the assist of all time. Basically, he wrestles his way past 2 spins, pivots, darts, and then I think. Just slightly too heavy a touch for Salah, but it would have been incredible. But so I don't think he's suffering in this system. Shaqiri's thriving in it. I think Salah's enjoying himself. The goals show that he must be. Firmino is the sacrificial lamb. Although second half his body language changed. It was as though maybe the team was more relaxed and allowed him to be more relaxed. I thought.
I
There were some positional changes, but his body language was better in the second half.
I think the faster we play, the more you're going to get out of Firmino.
Yeah.
I think the fact if Liverpool play slowly, Firmino is almost like, what on earth is the purpose of me in this?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think as soon as they up it, and this is why I think they need to find a way. And I very much back the notion that the manager's job isn't to get all 11 on the pitch playing well; it's to get Liverpool to win games. That's the manager's job at core. But I very much think that he has to work on a way, if he is going to play the four of them at home, for instance, pretty regularly, he has to work on the way in which he gets the best out of all four of them, because they will always be his most dangerous weapons, Mel. And I think that it can't be the idea of you wait until Shaqiri gets it and then everyone comes alive. He's going to have to solve how he gets everyone to come alive quite regularly through the middle of the pitch and bring in all four of his core players.
Yeah, I actually wonder if the issue is not them insofar as it's what's behind them. If he solves the midfield conundrum, and I think that happens with Naby Keita now being fresh and ready to play again, because he needs a line breaker there, and he doesn't have one at the moment. And when he has that, and when Liverpool has that, the dynamism and the tempo, everything is just automatically raised then. And the other thing with Naby is he gives you defensive solidity as well. It's great at intercepting the ball, tackling, all those stuff. So it's not like you're sacrificing anything in that regard. You're not putting an extremely attacking player as your 8, so he still maintains a bit of balance. The way the centre backs are playing as well, he can afford to be, more adventurous.
Get out the way, get 15 yards above them. Just get. I thought Van Dijk was shouting a fair bit yesterday. Like, just get out my way, will you?
Exactly.
I'm fine here.
The amount of times Van Dijk had the ball and had no proper pass on beyond a sideways or just in front of him.
Back to Alisson quite a bit.
Yeah, was really, really annoying. I was annoyed on his behalf because they were right on top of him. But I think it's just small little tweaks that fix that. And you were talking about Shaqiri's performance. He, I think at the moment, is my favourite player because his ability to understand what's required of him in every situation in relation to his teammates and stuff is astounding. And for somebody who during his career has been called individualist, to have the collective in his mind at all times and to manage to marry his ability with that of those around him is sensational. I agree. I thought Andy Robertson had a superb game, but for me, Shaqiri makes that team come alive. It's the way in which he embeds himself completely in the collective, as Mel's just said. That's the thing that's most surprised me. It was the thing I was most concerned about before we signed him, Dave, was the idea that he'll play the game very much on his own terms. And he is doing that in one sense, but there's another sense where he's playing it. He's decided his own terms are, how do I get the best out of these three around me and others on the pitch as well. And I think that's where, he's very much embedded himself completely in the ethos. And I think that the two performances yesterday that I've highlighted repeatedly, Shaqiri and Robertson, they embed themselves in Klopp's ethos in a way that a few others on the pitch are still sort of struggling with. They're selfless, the running's endless, there is a desire to constantly be present and active in the match and to force the issue all the time, and that's what the pair of them did brilliantly. And Shaqiri's doing it in a way which, as I say, it comes as a massive surprise to me. Not as a talent, his ability to turn away from people, but the thing that he's doing next all the time is, I'm just finding the best red shirt I can.
Yeah, I think you can see in him that I think there's a certain relief in him that in his entire time at Stoke, not to downplay Stoke too often, but I think you can see in him, it's almost like, how do I put this delicately, when someone's, say, being waterboarded, and...
How do I put this delicately?
Bear with me. Then they remove the towel and they give them the oxygen, and all of a sudden the victim is going, oh, thank God, oxygen, this is heaven. And I think you can see that in Shaqiri now, that he's finally got players around him who he's like, oh wow, actual other footballers who I can pass to.
I want some more analogies.
if you go back and look at his time at Bayern, he was so good at doing that as well, and I think that gets forgotten. He was so young. I think he was 20 when he was at Bayern, and his ability to do it then sort of got overlooked because he had all those troubles in Italy where Mancini didn't trust him. Then he went to Stoke where he had to play a completely different style of football and be all things to that team. And I think I still don't think we've seen the best of him yet. I think there's so much more to come from him.
I think everyone else plays better, you'll get more out of him.
Yeah. He, honestly, it's a toss-up between him and Joe Gomez at the moment for who my favourite player is. But I think by virtue of him just sparking life into that team, and my favourite thing is watching everyone else's reaction when he's on the ball, because you see them all just switch on.
Mentioned Joe Gomez there, Adam, in the context of discussing Fulham. I think mentioning that you can argue Mitrovic gave Gomez his toughest 90 minutes of the season so far, to be honest with you, in the same way that Arnautovic very much ran him hard first game. I think that you see that Mitrovic does that as well. They're a strange side, aren't they, really? They're one of the most curious teams in the division, I'd argue. You can see they've defended relatively well against us. They kept City to 3. I sort of wondered if they're the type of team who can actually defend but are struggling to calibrate between defence and attack, and that's why they're going to Cardiff and shipping 4 when they're playing Manchester City in 3, Liverpool 2. It's because when you play Manchester City and Liverpool, the expectation is you defend for your lives.
Yeah, I know they're a funny combination of things, aren't they? And I think that's sometimes teams that struggle are the ones that are neither kind of one thing or the other. I don't think they've got a... You know, the word ethos has been mentioned a few times by people. I'm struggling to see what Fulham's is. And part of that is Mitrovic, actually. Having Mitrovic as your focal point, you become a Mitrovic sort of team. I like him, you know. I mean, I wouldn't want him, but I enjoy. He's an enjoyable baddie, isn't he? He's
he was excellent yesterday.
Yeah, no, I sort of I like watching that sort of play, because I like watching the battle, and it was good to see. I mean, I think
Gomez makes 2 great fouls.
Yeah, I think that's what I was just about to say. That Gomez wins the battle. You know, he's annoyed with the referee for giving it as a foul, because it's like, come on. I mean, have you seen what I've had to put up with? But it is that's how he eventually wins the battle. He chases him further up towards Fulham's goal than Mitrovic really wants to be, and kicks him. And you know, it was brilliant. And Gomez is, you know, I've no. For a number of weeks now, I've had no worries about Gomez versus anybody. I think he, in fact, it's important to having him there, because I think he realises and react in a different way to the midfield being too deep as well. There's a few times in the second half where he drives, and I think that's something which Lovren doesn't really do. So that's something which you get more of from Gomez than you do from Lovren. And actually, yesterday we didn't get much of that from Virgil either. So yeah, I just think he's fantastic, and I'm as I say, what I mean by that, what previously been worried about him, I sort of thought, with him being so young, I wonder whether he'll do something like give a pen away in a big away game, and what will happen from there. But even
Derby's round the corner.
Well, but even if he does, I'm not worried about what happens from there.
Yeah,
sure. I think we can see that he's not one to lose his head.
He's not one to lose his head, Dave. It was, again, back to the idea of playing on him happens, I think, yesterday as well. That's a couple of sides have moved away from that, but I think that, yeah, it may well be one of them where the Fulham manager said to Mitrovic, which of them do you want to play on? And he's gone, I'll go for that lad. And as Adam says, he loses out on a couple of occasions. He fouls him a couple of times, but he most definitely does not lose the battle over the course of the 90 minutes. And as I say, this is off a player who I would compliment, who Mel said is excellent. I agree with that. All of that, I think, is testament to Gomez's performance. Sometimes a centre-half and a centre-forward can come up against each other, and you're able to say they both played well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mitrovic, as Adam said, he was a good player, and he's just one of those horrible strikers for a centre-back to play against, especially at midday on a Sunday. You think, I've only just got up. I don't want to have to play against Mitrovic for 90 minutes. But yeah, I thought he handled him brilliantly. I mean, Mitrovic, obviously he gets the near goal that was offside. Riley ruled out offside. But otherwise, it was Gomez gets the 2 fouls, which I think he was... Certainly on the second one, I think there was just that time he switched off and he got the wrong side of him, and he thought, oh God, I'm going to have to bring him down here and I'm probably going to get booked. But I'll still argue with the referee about it, because just to put that doubt in his mind. But I think that's where, with oppositions coming up against us at the moment, they're obviously looking at us thinking, right, well, there's always a weaker one in the defence, and when one of them is Virgil van Dijk, it's like, well, it's got to be the other one, because Virgil van Dijk is at the moment on current form, probably the best centre back in the world. So the other guy has to be the one we play off, and it's Joe Gomez, who's possibly on current form the second best centre back in the world.
Very handy.
Yeah.
No, who would have thunk?
And I think it's going to bear well in the future, because these games are tough for Joe at the moment. And it's just the amount of game time he's getting. He hasn't obviously had much game time at centre-back at this level before this season. But every single game he plays against players like Mitrovic, it's only going to serve to make him better in the long run.
Yeah, and I think he's a fantastic young player. I think he's emerging into being an outstanding defender, but it really helps having being alongside Virgil van Dijk, because you don't have to worry about what happens when the ball's in the air. And lots of other stuff. I enjoy
Gomez is also excellent in the air, by the way.
Yeah. But Virgil's at a level we haven't seen for a long time.
It was interesting.
Sammy,
there was an interview, just sorry to interrupt, Rob. There was an interview with Gomez in the Mail, I think, last week, where he said that heading used to be the weakest part of his game. It was really interesting.
That's what I feared for. We've talked for the last couple of years about the eventual conversion of him to being centre back, but I wondered in the physical battles in the air. But he has dealt with it well. I love watching Van Dijk though, and I like it. I just like him doing the basics, the housekeeping. Just when a ball's there to be cleared, it doesn't get sliced. It gets so properly cleared. You know what I mean? He almost like side foots volleys balls 40 yards up the pitch. When you think that's something on a windy day, or I'm just used to watching these 6 out of 10 centre backs that play.
Those clearances are the archetypal Ben Johnson good decision. Ben says good decision when the centre half hoofs the ball, but they really are a good decision when Virgil does it. He's decided to do it. It is a good decision.
They're elegant hoofs though, because they've got a sort of low trajectory on them, and they're the best hoofs I've seen. I just think he was magnificent, and we have talked. There's a lot of good cross-field passing from Virgil yesterday. We were getting space out in the flanks because Fulham were prepared to be higher up the pitch. There were some good switches of play. Sometimes balls slightly overhit by like half a yard. There's one where Trent, I was going, oh my God, what a ball, and Trent just miscontrols it. But
the one Robertson plays to Trent's second half is one of the best things I've seen in my whole life.
Robertson,
when everything's congested in the left back position, and he's just spotted that Trent's got absolute acres. And he just pings it 60 yards right onto his foot, and I was just like, God, this is unbelievable.
Yes,
On Trent, actually, I thought he had a horrendous opening 20 where he was then in his own head about his horrendous opening 20.
Gave a really cheap foul away with Fioris.
And that's going to happen a lot to him lately.
Nothing was coming off.
And he was trying Hollywood balls and things to get out of it, wasn't
exactly.
he?
Exactly. Everything was overhit or couldn't really keep balls in. But then he grew from his own performance. He relaxed. And I took comfort in seeing that he settled himself down, and then he got into the game because he was good second half. But yeah, just on Gomez, I enjoy watching him play those games, against Arnautovic, against Mitrovic, because that's what tells me he is off the very top standard, because I've seen greater centre-backs with a lot more experience and pedigree than him struggle against those sorts of players who just give you nothing. They're on you the entire game. It doesn't matter what the scoreline is for their team. They're just tireless, and he was equal to it. I thought he was superb. I think he's been superb all season, and in a way, I want Trent to completely get rid of his nervy period, which is very normal for a young player, because I don't want to see Joe Gomez at right back. I want to see him there at centre back with Virgil van Dijk for the majority of the season.
Philosophical question, because it's really hard to answer. I just want a yes or no from you. It's really hard to answer because fitness, coming back from international duty, is a thing.
Yeah.
Will he play this shape away at Fulham?
At Watford.
At Watford. Will he play this shape away at Watford?
I don't. I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't watched Watford for a few weeks. I'm not sure how good they are. If he thinks Watford are there for the taking, I think he goes 4-2-3-1. If he thinks they're going to be a real handful on their own pitch, which
they've had a big wobble.
Yeah, so he might. So therefore, he might go. Let's exploit the wobble and go.
I'm not asking you what he will do. I'm asking you what you would do.
I want to always go 5 attackers, 6 attackers. I go fuck it. Yeah, I'd go 4-2-3-1.
Mel?
I would probably. I don't know what I would do actually. I'd probably.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost like I designed it that way.
I know.
You asked for yes or no answers.
I'd put Henderson in.
Yeah, I want to see Naby
Keita
Keita in that midfield.
I do.
And I then wonder what he thinks is his best option in terms of fielding Keita. Does he revert to Ginny Milner Keita, which he's tried at the start of the season, which was successful, or then does he go Hendo, Gini, Keita? But then Gini's been really good as a 6. The issue is when you have Henderson and Gini, and you've told one of them to be further forward. If it's Gini, he doesn't play as well as the 8, and if it's
You're solving a midfield conundrum to play 3 midfielders. I'm asking you if you would play 3 midfielders, or would you play 4-2-3-1?
I want to see Keita in that midfield, and I don't think he does it without playing 3 midfielders.
I think it will be pretty much what we did at Palace. So that's Hendo, Keita.
Henderson comes on at Palace, but it's
Wijnaldum.
Yeah, he's very good as a sub. It's Keita, Wijnaldum, Milner.
Yeah, I don't think we're ready to have because we do 4-2-3-1 to start Shaqiri, and I don't think he starts him away yet. I would.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I mean, this seems a bit strange considering Shaqiri's probably our best player on form at the moment. But I think I would go back to 3 in midfield: Henderson, Keita, and Wijnaldum probably. I think it's just with being Watford, they have had a wobble lately, but they've been excellent this season and awful this season. And I think if you don't know which one's going to turn up...
They're quite an aggressive side as well.
Yeah, and Troy Deeney's back as well, which will have a big effect. So I think he'd play it slightly safer, but have obviously Shaqiri to come off the bench.
Okay, dead interested in that. We'll obviously be talking about that as it gets closer and closer to it. Liverpool sorted out quite nicely. Want to talk about the other sides briefly, as we're doing that at the end of each of these this year. Everton held Chelsea. Adam, the Ev came through for you. Good lads, aren't they?
Yeah, I was. I had no confidence in them doing that, to be honest. Just because I've watched Chelsea a few times, a lot this season, and I've been impressed with them ever since they played us. Actually, before that, I didn't think they were as good, and I thought it was pretty similar to their game against Palace last week. Chelsea's game against Palace, which they ended up winning 3-1. Except they just the point where the goals came against Palace, the game was a very similar shape, but. I thought Pickford did well when he needed to. They obviously didn't have any high shots, so he did what you'd want your goalie to do in a big away game, save them when he needed to, and they huffed and puffed a bit. I thought the referee was actually was a pain. He booked Yerry Mina for something daft, and then kept having to book people. And I thought
it was a bad tackle on Walcott.
I don't really remember that one.
It was over on his ankle.
Oh yeah, no, that was a bad tackle. And so was it Jorginho? In fact,
I think Jorginho got booked. I don't know if it was for that, and he was walking a tightrope.
So anyway, what I was going to say is that led to Sarri taking Jorginho off, because I think it was looking like a game where somebody was going to get sent off for a
Everton
while.
did well to nullify Jorginho because he is the metronome for Chelsea, and by stopping him playing, you basically cut off so much of Chelsea's life force. It is him and Hazard that are their 2 major weapons, and once you stop his feed into Hazard, and then you pretty much make sure Eden is dealt with well, then you restrict Chelsea. I thought Everton have actually been, in a lot of games this season, quite impressive in terms of their organisation and their ability to carry out a game plan without actually seeing the results for it. Happy they saw a result in this one.
They look like a team without a striker to me, and now sort of Richarlison's been there, and it's like it's all set up for Walcott to score the goal, but he's not really good. I know we're playing them soon, so we shouldn't say things like that.
It's fine. It's going to be hard at Anfield. Don't get me wrong. Wolves holding Arsenal. Quite nice news, Rob, as well. You know, in terms of just the sooner top 4 is none of our concern. In one sense, the better.
Yeah, that would be good, isn't it? Still was the first weekend in a while we've seen it begin to spread out slightly. Although we're disappointed at the City result, 3 of our rivals have dropped significant points. So I was quietly happy enough with this weekend's City. I suppose United at home, we would like them to have been done a favour by United, but you see, City did I didn't even think City had to play at the top of their game to put United in context again. They were a very flat, poor outfit, United, aren't they? Really, they just have one or two. They have players they've paid a lot of money for who can give them moments in games. And that's they can fluke wins in Turin, but they're not very good.
Spurs aren't very good either, but they won't stop winning, Dave.
It's tremendously annoying. A friend of mine's a Spurs fan, and he keeps on moaning about them. So similar to, I suppose, I do about Liverpool when I'm saying about, it hasn't clicked yet. He's doing exactly the same with Tottenham.
They really haven't clicked.
All their underlying numbers have dropped off considerably, and I think that's a huge concern for them. Everything, we've been saying this for weeks, everything that you ordinarily associate with that Tottenham team, they actually don't have. And it's no surprise, really, because when everyone else is taking it up and moving it to the next level, it's very hard for them with the constraints they have financially to be able to do that. And I think their players have been playing at their apex for the last few seasons, when you look at Dele Alli and Harry Kane and stuff. But when they're a little off colour, how do you then manage to keep pace with the likes of City, Liverpool, and Chelsea, and United have been a little bit similar, not so much in that they've been rescuing games that have seemed beyond them. Yeah. But that can't, when you're not playing well in general, when your underlying numbers aren't good, that eventually catches up with you.
I don't think they'll win. I'm not expecting them to beat any of the other top 6 sides this season.
Well, they've got their next 2 league games, Adam. The next 2 league games are at home against Chelsea and away at Arsenal.
I just don't.
Excellent.
I just
something to look forward to.
Yeah, they've always been good against the bottom half, and when they started to become better a couple of seasons ago, then they would start. They started to beat the other sides in the top 6. I just don't see it. They've already lost to City at home and Liverpool at home, obviously. This season, and I just
they won Old Trafford, to be fair to them.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
That was while United were awful.
Did they go with Arsenal a League Cup game or a league game?
United, that was probably United's best 45 minutes of the season, the first half. Tottenham just hit them twice on the break, but United were excellent in that game.
Sorry?
When they lost to Old Trafford.
Yeah.
When they lost to Old Trafford. And lastly then, mentioned briefly there, City. It's worth pointing out, as was pointed out to me emphatically by Steve Graves on Sunday, and I'm backing him to the hilt. They can't get any more points however many goals they score or however well they play. You only get 3 for a win, Mel. And if they want to have the goal difference point, let's just let them have it now, if that's the way it's going to go, and then let's not worry about it. That sounds, let them rock on, and let's hope that they tire.
Yeah, insofar as everyone else looks at Manchester City and thinks, how are you possibly going to catch them? Imagine City doing as well as they are, and they only 2 points ahead. It will grate them as well. Pep Guardiola said something interesting yesterday, that he felt his team played with fear and pressure in parts of that game, and that was quite an interesting thing for him to say. And I don't think he was talking just in terms of it being a derby, because United gave them nothing to worry about beyond the penalty. They didn't offer any sort of concern for City. I think he's talking about in general in terms of the situation in the league, which is hugely competitive at the top. City are really a class above. They're an excellent team, but I think we're still going to see, as historically the case with the Jurgen Klopp teams, Liverpool will get better, and I don't think people should be disheartened and should
absolutely not
discolour what Liverpool have done because of City.
I'm not either, to be honest. I have been, and I think that it's almost like they've tried to dishearten us. City have been trying to dishearten us over the last few weeks, and I think so. I was, in fact, I did the video with Craig before, and I was saying that in my opinion, there would have been a narrative this morning had we not beaten Fulham and they'd won. The papers would be giving City the league, I think, this morning, and that narrative can't happen now because we're still there. We're just 2 points behind them. So I think I'm very much up for a winter of 1-0 wins while they win 10-0, and they can have a plus our 500 goal difference, and we're still just 2 points behind them.
I'd like them to drop the odd point in the hard games now and again. That would help.
It would, and I don't really know where that's going to happen still, to be honest. It doesn't seem as if... But it's going to be... We'll just have to be there in March. March is when it's going to happen. We just have to be there or thereabouts in March.
It's been the Anfield app in association with Redbet. Got to echo everything there above. Liverpool have played 12, won 9, drawn 3. They have only conceded 5 league goals. If City want some fear and pressure, we'll put it on them by the fucking bucket load.